I'm making a video about Regulation G as well as Regulation I, and this is mainly a video for beginner players. Regulation G is a single restricted format, so you can only use one legendary, and hopefully Regulation I, which will be used for Worlds, will go over dual restricteds, and I'll talk a lot about that as well. So this is mainly a team building guide, what to look out for, the main restricteds you want to look for, and I'm also going to talk about the top 12, which are very important for the format. So you get a good feel of how the meta progressed up until this point and how to team build for it and what to look for. So for single restricteds, I think it's really important for just restricted formats in general is pick a legendary and stick with it. In other formats like Regulation H, you kind of wanted to practice against the top threats and build your team around countering it. And it was more important to get experience and know how to fight the top Pokemon of the format and those lower power level formats. But I think in restricted formats, single or dual, it's much better to just choose something and stick with it. Don't be a master of all trades and dip into different pools. Just stick with something because it will pay off even more in dual restricted formats because you'll know what partners you're going to look for. So I would say this format, a really good starting point is just find what you're comfortable with and kind of adjust your team around that legendary in order to have a good feel on its matchups and how to approach different scenarios. Because as the format progresses and you haven't really picked one, you're kind of behind people who've already know the matchups, they know how to approach different legendaries with their legendary. And here we have the top 8. I feel like it's more the top 6 because there's a little bit of a drop off once you get to these 3, but I think Kyogre is still pretty good. And I think Koraidon and Groudon are a lot better in dual restrictive formats, which I'll talk about later. So yeah, the top 12 are also really, really good as well, which I'll talk about and how they play a role into the format. So let me get into it. What makes all of these restricteds good? I think these 6 are the ones you kind of want to start out and test with. You can use the other restricteds, but I talked about in another video when I made a tier list why a lot of the restricteds aren't that great, and it mainly boils down to these 6. So the first one I want to talk about is Miraidon. Miraidon is really, really strong. It can stack damage super well. With Hydron Engine, special attack is boosted by a third. With Choice Specs, it's boosted again by another 1/5. And then it also has Stab, so same type attack bonus on its electric moves, and dragon moves get boosted due to its typing. And back then, at the start of Regulation G of last year, last year, dang, it's already December. So earlier this year, people were like, okay, let's boost it even more with Electric Terra and Electro Drift, and it just does a boatload of damage. Anything that didn't resist it and anything that isn't immune, like a ground type, would just get absolutely destroyed by this mon. It just does so much damage. But as the meta progressed and as Miraidon got more popular, people were like, okay, I think Fairy Terra is a little bit better. Electric Terra was really good because at the end of the game, you can end it with Discharge. Discharge is a really great way to end games with the spread move, and due to all of its damage stacking, it could just kill really easily. But there was a problem where sometimes you could paralyze your teammate and lose the game due to it because they can't protect or something like that. And there was also the problem with the mirror, where the mirror would come down to a speed tie. Whether you Electro Terra it or not, if you Draco Meteored, it would kill the other Miraidon, and it was a coin flip. So in order to kind of solve that problem, both of those problems, is you could go Fairy Terra and Dazzling Gleam. This makes it to where if you launch a Draco Meteor, you are having a guessing game on whether it would work or not if you Fairy Terra. And what you would do is you'd have to guess between Electro Drift, and if you hit the other Miraidon, it would be 4 times resisted while they're launching a Dazzling Gleam at you, which could kill you. Fairy type coverage is also not that easy to come by. You have Fluttermane, but there's not many other fairy types in this format that work super well. There are exceptions, which I'll talk about Tera Fairy Calyrex, but having a spread fairy type move on a dragon like this is super good. Hydron Engine also shuts off sleep and boosts electric type moves as an effect, so that also plays in part when playing against Amoongus. Miraidon's really great as a mon. It's really fun to use, especially with Volt Switch on Trick Room teams. It's really strong, and Hydron Engine synergizes really well with other mons. I think this is a really great mon to play if you're starting the format because it's not super difficult to play. It's very fast paced and is very flexible. Calyrex Ice has been really consistent. It's really linear, but it's very strong. What makes Calyrex super good is as one, whenever it gets a kill, it gets a boost to its attack. And it's also the perfect Trick Room on if you really think about it. It's really bulky, has high attack, has a spread move with Glacial Lance that's 120 power, and as one with Chilling Neigh, it just can sweep under Trick Room. It's kind of the perfect Trick Room on. Its typing isn't 4 times weak to anything, and is bulky enough to survive super effective hits. Clear Amulet is really good against Incineroar, because back then you'd have to run White Herb and Sword and Shield, but now Clear Amulet's just better, so you don't have to worry about Intimidate. And Fire Tera is there as a way to deal with Will-O-Wisp from Incineroar. Stomping Tantrum rounds out its coverage. Actually, no, this should be High Horsepower. High Horsepower rounds out its coverage with Ice and Ground. It's super solid offensively. You can hit the Fire types and Steel types that resist Ice moves. And one thing that was made, one improvement was Imprison. One of the teams with Calyrex used Imprison. Instead of going low speed and Trick Room, you could go max speed, imprison other Calyrex, and just kind of like steal games from them. It was really creative and smart. Usually instead you'd run Protect, and go low speed, and pair this with a lot of mons like Amoongus, which I'll talk about in a bit, and just stuff to kind of let it sweep. But Imprison is another really creative option with max speed. Really cool stuff. Another Tera you can consider is Water. Water's really good against Chi-Yu as well, and it's really consistent. So usually Water or Fire are your main ones, and Grass. Grass is another cool one against Amoongus, because under Trick Room, Amoongus is slower and can put your Calyrex to sleep, which can be annoying. But Fire is pretty consistent as well if you don't want to get burned. So you have to choose between getting burned, being put to sleep, or countering stuff like Urshifu with Water. So it really depends. And other water types that can be really strong in this format. So Fire is really good. And it also resists Make It Rain. Balanced. Calyrex Shadow is really balanced. Throughout the format, people have kind of seen that it's really strong with Draining Kiss. What you can do with this mon is it's kind of the perfect tank if you set it up. You can go max speed or just around that, and you can go the Draining Kiss style with Calm Mind. Add some more bulk. You don't want to put too much in the special attack. You add more bulk into it. And Fairy Tera allows it to counter those dark types that Calyrex is weak to. And as one similar to Calyrex Ice, if it gets a kill, it gets plus to its special attack, which is really cool. But once you Fairy Tera, you're not Ghost type anymore, so you're weak to Fake Out. So people added Covert Cloak, Draining Kiss, Calm Mind, and kind of as a way to slowly heal and boost up your damage so you can end the game with Astral Barrage, which is very cool. This is one way of running it. You run it with support mons, similar to Calyrex, so that it can sweep and be safe. Another thing you can go with is Nasty Plot. Nasty Plot's really good if you want to play more offensive. You can go Nasty Plot with Psyshock, which is really good, or some psychic move here, and then adjust your Tera so that it's something that you can counter other mons with. One option is against other Calyrex, you can go Tera Normal. Tera Normal is really smart because then their Astral Barrage can't hit you. You can also go with Tera Water. Tera Water with Nasty Plot allows you to pretty much counter Calyrex Ice. They can't really hit you with the Glacial Lance. Or you can go with Tera Dark as another option, so it can be hit by Prankster Mons while also shrugging off the Astral Barrages. And let's see, what else can you go with? There's not too much else unless you want to get really particular. Tera Water, you can also go Tera Blast with Peliper, which I think is another cool option, and then you adjust your item to the Life Orb to do a ton of damage. Calyrex is really great if you want to run a more balanced Mon that's a lot faster, or you can either go with Nasty Plot Life Orb or Calm Mind Draining Kiss with Covert Cloak. Zamazenta is really strong because it counters a lot of cores in this format. First off, you have Wide Guard, which is really strong into the 3 with Dazzling Gleam, Glacial Lance, Astral Barrage. There's a ton of spread moves in this format, so having Wide Guard as utility is really strong. Body Press destroys Incineroar, which I think is very important because Incineroar is a really strong mon in this format, so being able to kill it's really, really nice. Heavy Slam allows you to hit the fairy types that are kind of a struggle for it to deal with because it resists Body Press. I'd say the main thing when building Zamazenta is you want to play around ghost types. I think that's pretty huge. So having teammates to kind of kill ghost types and deal with it, whatever resists Body Press, is really important. And then you have Protect, which is good. Dragon Tear is really consistent because it avoids Rilaboom, it helps you avoid Urshifu and take less damage, fire damage from Chi-Yu, which is important. But overall, this is a really good counter to Incineroar, Urshifu, and Rilaboom cores, while also having the Wide Guard support to deal with other restricteds. Terapagos is also really strong. Terapagos is very bulky with Tera Shell. One set that's really popular is you can set up a substitute and go for Calm Minds with Protect, kind of a more stall variant. Tera Starstorm is unresisted. Once it teras, it also does a ton of damage, and Leftovers is there for your much slower set that you're going with. Really similar to Calyrex, except you're a normal type, so you're immune to other Calyrexes, which is really smart. And due to its ability, it allows it to set up. It's pretty much like a multi-scale, if you think about it. And then once it teras, Transform 0 ends the effects of weather and terrain. So the terrain, Hydron Engine, the electric terrain goes away, and weather from Kyogre and Miraidon will also disappear. So Tera Starstorm is unresisted, it's a spread move, and it's really strong. So this is really good with teammates that force Teras. That's how you want to build the team. It's a much slower style of Calyrex, I would say. Kyogre is really good as well. There's a few ways to run it. You can run Mystic Water with Water Spout and go with Tailwind, or you can also go slower with Calm Mind, and instead of Water Spout, you go Protect, which I think is cool. You can also run Assault Vest, which is one set that I ran. Drizzle is just really good. With Calm Mind, it allows you to kind of deal with Calyrex and Terapagos, where you have kind of this Calm Mind war. And then you have you naturally resist Glacial Lance, which is really nice. But the only problem is Miraidon, so you're forced to Grass Tera with it. So that's kind of a short overview with all of these. They all have really good power. They have good abilities, which allows it to help its teammates, and just are really fun to play as well. And they're really good in this format. So I would say pick a restricted that you like, and then kind of build a team around it. and get consistent with it, because that will really pay off the more you play it, and I think that's the key to success in restricted formats. So let's go over the teammates. These teammates will be really important in single restricted or dual restricted formats. Also, I'll talk about the thing with Zamazenta later, but I forgot about it. So Urshifu is the most used Pokemon for a reason. Unseen Fist allows it to hit through Protect, which is really, really nice. And it's just, water's a really great offensive typing, especially with rain. And at first with the format, people were like, okay, let's use Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf boosts its speed to where it's just barely able to outspeed Calyrex at max speed. So 149 times 1.5 is 1 point faster than Calyrex. So that's really important. Let's pull up the damage calc just so we can see. Urshifu Rapid Strike with the water, Choice Scarf, and we're at level 50. 244. Jolly, actually I think Adamant is still fine. So we're at 223, and Calyrex is at 222. So we barely outspeed it, which is really nice. And then we can go Tera Water, which is a classic combo. Tera Water on it, which is very good, and then just beat up Calyrex. This was really fine, but a different way you can run it that got popular is you run Focus Sash instead. We don't care about outspeeding it, we're just gonna live a hit from Calyrex anyways. And then we can just go Stellar Tera. So once it Stellar Terras into Fairy, we can just Stellar Terra, Surging Strikes, and pretty much do similar amount of damage and live a hit from it, and it can't protect either. So this is really good against that. It's also good into Calyrex Ice. I mean, it's pretty much a water type with this Tera. We can resist Calyrex Ice, which is really, really nice. Close combat's good against Incineroar. And Urshifu also gets access to Coaching. Coaching is very good in a format where legendaries are really big and scary, and you can boost its damage even more. So really good to pair with Calyrex Ice as well as Zamazenta. So very good Mon, hitting through Protect with water type moves, and Stellar Terra is very, very scary, especially when it lives a hit. You want to live a hit in this format, and if you're able to trade a restricted for a non-restricted Pokemon like Urshifu, then that's a really great trade. And that's what a lot of these Mons here are really good at doing, is they're able to counter these restricteds by trading themselves for them so that your legendary can beat up their team. Dark Urshifu is less used. Wicked Blow also crits, just like Surging Strikes, which is really good. It's really good into Calyrex Dark. It's really good into Terapagos. Forgot to mention, because these are fighting types, they're really great into Terapagos. And it also hits through Protect. It also has Sucker Punch to end the game with, which is cool. And usually you would run Detect on it. Detect is very cool. It's less used because regular Urshifu is just a little bit better because it resists the Calyrex, which is cool. But there's no shame in using this one as well. Regular Urshifu is just as broken. It also has access to Poison Jab, so against fairy types it has an option. But normally you just, if you want to run the bare bones consistent set, you would run this. It has Tera Dark, so just like how King Gambit was last format, you can run Urshifu to pretty much do the same thing, where it crits with Wicked Blow, that always crits. It's this dark move that goes through Protect, and then you Tera Dark and do a ton of damage. Very strong Mon. Rilaboom, on the other hand, is really great at countering Miraidon. Miraidon is really good, as well as Kyogre, because you get rid of Miraidon's terrain, and then its electric moves don't do that much damage. And then you can go with Fake Out, Grassy Glide, and U-Turn to always kind of cycle it in. And Grassy Surge also heals, so it pairs really, really well with Zamazenta, who just wants to sit on the field. It gets +1 from its defense, and it just wants to sit on the field and body press everything. So Rilaboom, really good against Miraidon and Kyogre. And it can also cycle out and be really good with Incineroar. Fire Tera is mainly there just to deal with Fluttermane, all the fairy types, which are really good, and pair it with Assault Vest, it's a really good tank, as well as any fire moves that come its way. And also it's really good into Gholdengho as well, for that reason. As for its last move, most people would run Wood Hammer, which is really cool, or you can run something like, where is it? High Horsepower to do it. So Wood Hammer just does a ton of damage, especially because it's boosted by the terrain, and High Horsepower hits Miraidon. Raging Bolt's pretty much a legendary like itself. It's really good into Miraidon. It's kind of like a diet Miraidon, if you think about it. It takes advantage of Miraidon's terrain because it's an electric type and gets a boost to Thunderclap, which is an electric version of Sucker Punch. And it's also really, really good into Kyogre as well. And it's very bulky. It's kind of deceptively bulky. It has a lot of HP and high special attack and takes advantage of the electric terrain. And having an electric type Sucker Punch is very good into Urshifu. It also resists Urshifu and Rilaboom, which is nice. And it has Draco Meteor to do a lot of damage with booster energy, and it also takes advantage of the sun from Koraidon and Groudon. So it's really good into some of these weather matchups, like rain or sun, because it's an electric type as well, and good into Miraidon as well. It's very bulky. You can usually run Thunderclap with the Dragon move, and then booster energy, you can also run Life Orb on it to do even more damage. Or you can run Assault Vest to add to its bulk, which is really cool. It also gets Snarl, which is very valuable in this format, where Calyrex is really, really strong, as well as Miraidon, and Kyogre and Terapagos. There's a lot of really scary special attackers, so Snarl is another move you can run. And then Electro Web is a move that lowers the speed by 1, so it's really great for speed control. Being able to outspeed your opponent's legendaries with yours is really important. So speed control is very key. Farigiraf is very good. What you can do with Farigiraf is on Miraidon teams, you can Tera into water and then get an electric seed boost, so it boosts its defense. And against Calyrex, it's a really great counter to it, because Calyrex Ice can't hit it super hard, and it can just hit it back with the foul play. And once it gets boosted by As1, you're doing even more damage. So Farigiraf's a great Calyrex Ice counter. It's also good into Calyrex Shadow if it doesn't Tera, because you're immune to Astral Barrage. Armor Tail's really great into Fake Out from both Rilaboom and Incineroar. And it also gets a slew of other moves like Psychic to deal with Amoongus and Helping Hand. Really great Mon. It's really good into both Calyrex forms. And it's also really good into the Fake Out users of this format. So very nice Mon, especially with Trick Room. Incineroar has an amazing typing into both Calyrex forms. It resists Glacial Lance and Astral Barrage, which is very key. It has access to Fake Out, which is great utility. Parting Shot. Everybody knows Incineroar is broken, but it's even stronger in this format when you're able to counter both Calyrex forms at once. And then you have Parting Shot to deal with Terapagos as an option, Fake Out to slow people down, and Will-O-Wisp is really great into bonds like Zamazenta and Koraidon, as well as Calyrex Ice, which is the big one. That's why Calyrex Ice has to run Fire Tera, because it really doesn't want to get hit by any burn moves to have its damage. Incineroar is just really great. You can put Safety Goggles to deal with the Amoongus. Intimidate is really broken in doubles, and Ghost types avoids the Body Press from Zamazenta. So it actually flips the matchup. If you're able to Tera and Sin against Zamazenta teams, it's very, very strong. She used the offensive version of Incineroar, where it can resist both of them and then hit back Calyrex Ice with the Heat Wave or Calyrex Ghost with the Dark Pulse. also has access to Snarl. You can either run Choice Scarf, which is really great. If you run Choice Scarf, you can go with Tera Blast, and then a Tera of your choice. Like, let's say we want to counter Miraidon, we can go with Tera Ground on it. So now we're countering 3 legendaries for 1. And then we also hit Zamazenta with another ground move, which is nice. So you can go with that set. You can also go with something like Ruination to cut damage in half from really, really bulky special mons like the Calm Mind users and Dondozo. So Choice Scarf is one option. Choice Specs, I think, is a little bit weaker in this format, but it is an option. Or you can go with Focus Sash, replace Tera Blast for Protect, and then go with Tera Ghost in order to not get our Focus Sash broken by a Fake Out user like Incineroar. Chi is really strong because Beads of Ruin gives it a ton of damage, especially with Overheat. It just does so much damage. This can literally knock out anything. It's almost like a fire-type Miraidon. And it also boosts its teammates, so it's really good with Terapagos and Calyrex Shadow if you put it on that team. So Chi, really, really strong. Beads of Ruin is a support move, and you can run it with either Focus Sash or Choice Scarf in this format. It's very good. Iron Hands is pretty much like an electric version of Urshifu in a way, where it's a fighting type, but instead of doing as much damage, it wants to heal itself with Drain Punch. I don't know why I said this was a electric version of Urshifu. I would say it's like Urshifu and Rilaboom combined, where you're a fighting type with Assault Vest that's really bulky and trying to heal itself. So Drain Punch is really good into Terapagos, but even better, it's really great on Miraidon teams because it gets a Quark Drive boost, and it's electric type, so Wild Charge is doing a ton of damage. And then it also has Fake Out. So electric type, Rillaboom, and Low Kick is also a really smart move. There's a lot of really heavy mons. Legendaries are really, really heavy. So Low Kick with electric terrain from Quark Drive with its really good attack stat just does a lot of damage. So these are the moves you want to run on it. It's really, really consistent. It's very bulky, and it's just really solid. So Iron Hands, the Tera, one Tera you can run is, you can run a few. You can either be immune to Spore with Grass Tera and resist the ground types. You can go with, let's see. You can go with Poison Tera in order to be immune to the fairy types as well as grass types. You can also go with Fire to do the same thing where it's immune, where it resists fairy, which is cool. You can also go with Bug Tera. Bug is really interesting because you are immune. Well, you're not immune, but you resist the ground types. You resist rock. Oh, you don't resist rock. You resist ground. You resist grass types from Rillaboom. And you also can resist, what else does Bug resist? Ground, grass, and fighting. So against other fighting types, it's really good. So overall, very solid Mon, as it can just keep healing itself off of Terapagos, and it can be really hard to take down as well. I guess another thing, if you wanted to add a gimmick, is you could add Fling. You could add Fling on it and just like kill a Calyrex if you wanted to, but Fake Out is a little bit better. Ogerpon forms. So this talks about Ogerpon and Hearthflame. So I'll talk about them all the main ones. So let's go with Hearthflame, and then I'll talk about Ogerpon Water. So Ogerpon Hearthflame is very good. They're all good because they have Follow Me. Follow Me is very strong because it redirects attacks from a restricted, which is very nice, and it's one of the best moves in doubles. Spiky Shield is usually the move you run because it's a better protect, which is also great in doubles. And then you have a Ivy Cudgel, which you run on all of them, but it varies from different types. Ivy Cudgel, and then the last move is normally up to you. So These three are pretty much standard on all three of these. What makes Hearthflame so good is when it teras, it boosts its attack by 1.2. So with the fire move and being a grass type, it's pretty much immune to spore from Amoongus. It's a great Amoongus counter. It's also really, really good into Calyrex Ice. So it's pretty much forced to tera into fire. It can also be really good into Zamazenta, which is cool. And it just does a ton of damage because of +1 attack. It also doesn't get super hard countered by Incineroar, because even though it gets intimidated, it can get the attack boost back. And then Mold Breaker goes through stuff like Sturdy. Ogerpon's great because Sturdy is great in a format where restricteds just kill you, but now you can't kill it. And with Follow Me, it's guaranteed to take at least 2 hits. Ivy Cudgel is very cool on this. The only thing is you don't want to run Woodhammer on this guy because of the recoil. You don't want to mess with Sturdy. So you run Spiky Shield. And having a rock type offensive move that can crit and is 100 damage is very, very strong. Again, into Calyrex. And then normally people would run Horn Leech on this set just to heal themselves. Ogerpon has great stats. It's also very fast, which is very important. So this is pretty much the standard set on it. And also because it's a grass type, it ignores Rage Powder from Amoongus, so you can go through Rage Powder users and hit the Calyrex forms and Terapagos. Ogerpon Water has Water Absorb, so it's very good against Kyogre, as well as Urshifu. It's a really great Urshifu counter, so Surging Strikes can't just destroy you. Instead, you just get healed by it. It has Spiky Shield, again, and Horn Leech, and Follow Me. So pretty much the same thing, except each Ogerpon form counters different stuff depending on what your team needs. Do you not want to deal with the Amoongus? Do you want to have a great Sturdy user? And do you want to counter Urshifu and Kyogre? So Fluttermane is another great mon. It's pretty much like a mini boss where it has great stats. Booster Energy boosts its speed. And with Icy Wind, it becomes the fastest thing in the format, which is really cool. Photosynthesis allows it to activate upon weather from sun, so it's great into Miraidon and Groudon. But you're mainly going to see Fluttermane as speed control in this format. It's not going to be super offensive. Unlike past formats, it's mainly going to be the fastest thing due to Booster Energy and Icy Wind, which is really cool. And then it's also faster than Calyrex, so you can hit Calyrex with your own Shadow Ball. So you're faster than Calyrex, much faster because of the booster. The only problem with Icy Wind is because of Covert Cloak. Covert Cloak's also really good on Calyrex because it avoids Snarl and Icy Wind, which you're starting to see. So Fluttermane is more of a supportive mon in this format. You just give it good amounts of speed, and then some bulk, and then maybe like a little bit of special attack. This isn't like a true EV spread. But Icy Wind, Shadow Ball, sometimes it runs Thunder Wave. Being able to paralyze your opponent's restricted is very important, because if you're faster than the restricted or they get paralyzed on a crucial turn, you can pretty much like win the game. So Protect is really good. You can also always go with Moonblast if you want to, which is run more often. But Fluttermane's job is usually Icy Wind in this format because it's the fastest Icy Wind user. Well, next to Iron Bundle, but that one's not run as much. So fast Icy Wind user, it has Thunder Wave, and then Moonblast threatens stuff like Miraidon and Koraidon. Its Tera is really interesting because depending on what you want to counter, its Tera can do that for you. So if you want to avoid Calyrex, you can go Tera Normal and then do a ton of damage against that. You can also go Tera Ground against Koraidon, so you avoid the Dragon and Electric type moves from it. Or you can go with Tera Grass, so you can instead resist it and then not be hit by Spore. Speaking of Spore, Amoongus is very strong. Amoongus has Citrus Berry and Spore to be really consistent. You can has Rage Powder, it has Protect, You can go with Sludge Bomb if you want to counter the fairy types or grass types that try to tear out of it. Or you can go with Pollen Puff, which is also a strong option to heal your restricteds on the side. So this is mainly paired with Calyrex Ice, so you can Rage Powder, so we can set up a Trick Room, Spore stuff under Trick Room, and be a menace to society. So Protect, Rage Powder, Pollen Puff, Spore, very consistent. Regenerator, because you're going to switch a few times with it, it heals it. I think Citrus Berry makes it very consistent, but another option is Rocky Helmet. Rocky Helmet means you can Rage Powder against Urshifu, and it takes damage from each Surging Strikes that it hits. Very interesting mon. So there's a few teras you can work with. Water is very consistent. Water allows you to resist opposing Calyrex, so you can also counter other Calyrex Ice teams and spore them, while also resisting them with water. It's also very good into Zamazenta. Zamazenta, you can Rage Powder against it, and then resist its Body Press or put it to sleep. And then Water Tear is also really good against Miraidon because it resists both the fighting moves and the fire moves because of Water Tear. Water Tear is really, really frustrating for Miraidon to deal with if you have an Amoongus. So very good. And then you can also go with Fairy Tera, so against Raging Bolt. If Raging Bolt is only running Thunderclap, Draco Meteor, if you Rage Powder against it, it can't really hit it. So Fairy Tera is really good there. It's also good into Miraidon. And it still resists the Body Press, which is important. Spore is also really good against Terapagos, because Terapagos, like I said earlier, is a much slower version of Calyrex. So being able to have time to spore stuff to sleep is really disruptive to them. Lastly, you can also go with Dark Tera. Dark Tera means Prankster can't hit you. You resist the Calyrex, which is nice, but you're weaker to stuff like fighting moves. So this one's less common. So either Water or Fairy is the most common Tera. Landorus is really good into Miraidon, which is popular. It's also a great counter to Zamazenta because of its ground moves. Sheer Force with Life Orb hits really hard with Earth Power. So that's very, very good. And then Sludge Bomb, if they try to tear into Fairy or something, then you just hit them and destroy them. It's also good into Incineroar, which is nice. And Sludge Bomb also hits Rilaboom. And you have Earth Power for Raging Bolt, Earth Power for these three guys, Earth Power to you, Earth Power to all that. Pretty much, you have answers to everything with Ground and Poison. Really great offensive coverage, and it hits very hard. You can also go with Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf is very, very good because what you can do is on rain teams, you can go with Sandsear Storm. So this is another way you can run it. And then the Tera, it can be poison if you want to boost its Sludge Bomb. There's also Tera Ghost. So you avoid Fake Out, which is very popular this format. Fake Out is just very, very strong because if you're able to shut down a restricted with Fake Out, then you can pretty much like go to town with your partner. So you're not trading one for one, but you're stopping one for one. So your Incineroar can just like Fake Out a Mon, and then the Incineroar does nothing, but your opponent does nothing, so it turns into a 1v1. But having Ghost Tera on some of these Mons is just very important in a format like this, because avoiding Fake Out is just super, super good so you can play the game. So like I was saying, Choice Scarf with Sandshear Storm, you have Ghost Tera, and then in the rain it can be really, really good. Can't miss in the rain, because that 80% accuracy is very scary. And then as for its last move, it really depends. If you're running Choice Scarf, you can normally go with something like, let's see, you can go with Psychic if you really wanted to. It also has access to Weather Ball. If you're running usually you run Choice Scarf with Rain, so Weather Ball is pretty smart. And let's see, you have Grass Knot as well, but it's not that useful. But if you run the Life Orb set, Life Orb, you can run Substitute, and then of course Protect. So if you set up a sub with this mon, it can be really difficult to take out because you can create these scenarios where, okay, I'm facing a restricted, but they have to hit through the substitute first, and then I can hit their restricted or their other mons. So substitute's really strong in doubles if you're able to find the right spot to use it. And then you can either go something like Steel, which is another option, and then you also have access to Taunt if you don't want the substitute. So 2 different ways to run it. Peliper is very strong. Drizzle is very great against Miraidon, which is nice. And it really helps Calyrex out. So the way Peliper works is it also has Wide Guard. Wide Guard is very strong with all the spread moves in this format, as we've been seeing. So it can shut down restricteds with its Rain and Wide Guard. And then you normally give it a Focus Sash so it can survive at 1 HP and use Wide Guard. If you have Wide Guard as a flying type, Calyrex Ice cannot hit you. So that is very, very important. You normally give it Ghost Terror again so we can avoid the Fake Out game, which is very popular. And then you give it Weather Ball, which is cool, Hurricane as an option. And then also as Tailwind, which is great support. You can also, instead of Weather Ball, you can run something like, you could run Muddy Water if you wanted to. Protect is also another option if you don't want Wide Guard, just so it's consistent. So Peliper is mainly great against pretty much all of these. It resists the body press, it does a good amount of damage back to Zamazenta, it turns off the sun for the rain, and it has Wide Guard for pretty much most of the main threats of restricteds. Whimsicott is mainly there for speed control. It also resists Miraidon completely unless it uses Dazzling Gleam. Light Screen is very important as well for it to set up. So Light Screen is very good because it helps your team out against Calyrex, Miraidon, Terapagos, and Kyogre. And then you have Encore. Encore is very good because this is another way to shut down mons in this format. So if your opponent is a restricted and it gets locked into a move, say like Calyrex uses Trick Room, you can Encore it, and then now it's pretty much shut down, which is exactly what you want in this format. Tailwind, Light Screen, and then Moonblast is doing a fair amount of damage to Miraidon as well as Miraidon. So also resists the body press, and you normally go Covert Cloak on it. There's also a ton of other moves you can run on Whimsicott. These are just the standard. You can also go with Taunt, which is really good. Prankster Taunt is very strong. And you also have Fake Tears to help boost damage. You have Endeavor if you really wanted to. You could go with something like Endeavor, Focus Sash, and Ghost Terra as an option. You can drop your health down to 1, and then now you're fast, and then you Endeavor something like a Zamazenta. And now they're at 1 HP. So another way to trade against restricteds. The better set, or as I should say, the more useful set is Covert Cloak, so you avoid Fake Out, and then you go with something like Terra Dart. Terra Dart is really great against Calyrex, so you can avoid Astral Barrage, or resist it. And then Encore. Encore, really, really great. Lastly is Ursaluna. Ursaluna is really great against, in Trick Room, it's really good against Miraidon. Because it's a normal type, it is immune to Astral Barrage, which is nice. And then it just does a ton of damage in general under Trick Room. What you can do against Miraidon is with Fairy Tera, you can go Protect with Fairy Tera, and then either it locks into an electric move or a dragon move, and depending on what it goes for, it doesn't matter, we just protect it anyways. And then it has Flame Orb to boost with Guts and Facade, so it just does a ton of damage. And it's very slow, so it's very good in Trick Room. Or you can go max speed with Tailwind, but it depends on your team. So another really solid mon. These are all the main chess pieces you will see. They'll pick your restricted and then use these to support it, which is kind of how Reg G works, I would say. So this is a really good starting point and why all these mons are good. So as for dual restricted, which I think is more fun to talk about, Reg G is kind of, I don't want to say it's been solved, but there's just so much more potential with dual restricted mons. So let's talk about Miraidon and Calyrex because I think they're absolutely insane together. So like I was saying, Miraidon, you want to pair it with something like Farigiraf with Electric Seed, and then Ursaluna is a really great option for it because you could go with Discharge and it's a ground type. And or what you can do is you can go Volt Switch turn 1, set up the Trick Room, and then send out Ursaluna. So really flexible mon, as I was saying, really good with Whimsicott as well. So you can have a Tailwind mode to the team, and then hit hard with like a Volt Switch turn 1 and switch out. And then Iron Hands gets boosted, like I was saying, Wild Charge, Quark Drive with the electric terrain is really strong. And I think Calyrex is a great final piece to the team. What you could do is you can go something like Ground Tera and bring back the electric Tera with Discharge and just be really good. The nice thing about dual restricted is there's different modes you can run. You're like, I don't know what mode they're going to go with. And then you can go with like Miraidon, Calyrex turn 1, and then Volt Switch and Trick Room. Calyrex also likes the Fake Out support from Iron Hands. And then you can also have Ursaluna to hit with Ground and Ice. And then you have Ice with Electric. Because as you'll see here, if we look at the top teams, most Calyrex teams are more of a balance core where it's just a bunch of different mons like Landorus as a ground type, and Urshifu and a Trick Room setter and a Follow Me user. We have, more balanced mons, and then we have our electric type here on the side, a Regieleki, Raging Bolt, this is more of an aggressive team with the Fluttermane and Chi-Yu, an electric type Raging Bolt. So why not just use Miraidon instead? Miraidon's a little bit better too, because we set up the electric terrain against Amoongus. Amoongus is very slow, so we can set up a spore under Trick Room. So that would normally be a problem for Trick Room. But now that we set it up, we don't care about that. Calyrex is really, really happy, sets up the Trick Room. We could even go with an Imprison mode if we don't care about Trick Room and we want to counter them. And then we have Light Screen to do. I think this team's insane. I think for dual restricted, these two are a match made in heaven. They're absolutely ridiculous together. And you could even add like a Follow Me user. You can go with Ogerpon and like just go Follow Me. And Follow Me benefits both Miraidon as well as Calyrex. And I think the team synergy is absolutely insane. They give so much to each other. It's crazy. So I think Miraidon with Calyrex is going to be a top tier duo in dual restricted. Because they run similar, the teams they run is just so good for each other. So as for the next one, Calyrex, like I was saying, the way you run it is with Rilaboom for that Grassy Surge, and it also has Draining Kiss, and it's just healing a bunch of stuff. You have Incineroar, because even though we're Calm Minding and stuff, we're not really boosting our defense, but we can have Incineroar with Intimidate to lower the attack, and then we have Will-O-Wisp against those really, really great physical attackers. And then we have U-Turn, so we're switching out, and then we have Parting Shot, so these combo super well with each other because they can switch into each other's resistances. And then we have Urshifu as the final piece to deal with any of those normal types that want to resist Astral Barrage. So Calyrex is very good. And then we have Clefairy. Clefairy is a really great option for the team because Friend Guard makes Calyrex even bulkier and hard to kill while it's healing from Draining Kiss and grassy terrain. And then we have Follow Me, which is really great at redirecting those dark type moves from Urshifu. After U's really great because Clefairy is really slow, so if they set up a Trick Room, we can just use After U with Calyrex and be the fastest thing on the field. It's really ridiculous. And then Friend Guard, Eviolite, you can normally go with Ground Tera or Grass Tera on it to deal with the Amoongus and Miraidon. And then Icy Wind for support. Terapagos, I think it's an interesting partner for Calyrex because it's the same thing, right? Where we're Calm Minding, we want the Rilaboom, we want the Incineroar, and also having a Urshifu to force Teras. Terapagos is really cool because what you can do with Calyrex is it resists all of Calyrex weaknesses. So like other Calyrex, we can just switch into our own Terapagos. And it's kind of a dual mode. You don't know, you can kind of, depending on the matchup, switch modes with the team. And Terapagos really likes it when you force the opponent to Tera. Calyrex is amazing at doing that because of Astral Barrage. It forces people, like I was saying earlier, like Amoongus can Tera into a Dark type, or Fluttermane is forced to Tera into a normal type, and so on and so forth. So having a restricted like Terapagos on its side, I think is really interesting to pair with Calyrex, because Calyrex is good at forcing Teras and Terapagos punishes them. And Urshifu is another one that forces Teras as well. So I think this is interesting to pair these two together on like a balanced team and then have either a follow me user or some sort of speed control on the team as well. So very cool. I think these two could definitely work with each other. And if you're building for Reg H, this is more of like your balanced style core. And then like I was saying earlier, if you're running Miraidon, you want to run more of like a Trick Room user. And then if you're running Calyrex, it's kind of similar where you have your Follow Me user, and sometimes it has a Tailwind mode. But Calyrex is really similar to Calyrex Shadow, where you run it with a bunch of different mons that synergize with each other as like a balanced core. So Calyrex, you don't even have to run Draining Kiss. You could probably go with Nasty Plot instead and be more aggressive. And go with like Life Orb, Astral Barrage, like I was saying earlier, and then Psyshock or Psychic. Either one works. Psyshock's really great into Terapagos to hit it for defense while it's Calm Minding up, as well as other Calyrexes. And then you can go with whatever Tera you want, maybe normal. So really strong, and I think these two could be really great with each other. Another way to run Calyrex Shadow is Expanding Force. I think Expanding Force is going to be really great in dual restricteds, all because of Miraidon. Miraidon really pairs nicely with Calyrex, because what you can do is, so Size Spam. Size Spam is normally a core of, you have Calyrex Shadow, or you have Dawn Wings. You have Expanding Force, so in Psychic Terrain, it does even more damage and hits both opponents. And the Psychic Terrain setter is Indeedee because it has Follow Me, a really broken move, as we're seeing. We have Follow Me, and then we have Ursaluna, which is really nice. And then under Trick Room as a sweeper, and then we have Gallade, which is really great into Incineroar because of Sharpness and Sacred Sword. Just does a lot of damage, and it also benefits from the terrain because of Psycho Cut. And then also as Wide Guard and as another Trick Room user for the team. And then originally, what you would run on this style of team, I'm just going to jump back and forth here. So you have your Gallade as your Incineroar counter, and then Ursaluna. And then normally you'd run Torkoal. Torkoal is very good because under Trick Room with Eruption, it would do a lot of damage. You give it Charcoal, it would boost it even more with Drought, and it just does a lot of damage. And it's the slowest thing in Trick Room. It's even slower than Amoongus. So that's 20 speed. Amoongus is 30 speed. So under Trick Room, Eruption comes out, Drought plus Torque with Charcoal. Once you set it up, would be really good. And yeah, you would set it up. Dawn Wings also has Trick Room as an option. And then you'd run Lilligant. So Lilligant, is the opposite of Clefairy, where you could give it after you and Chlorophyll. So Chlorophyll activates from the drought, and then Chlorophyll allows after you for Torkoal to be even stronger. Well, not stronger, but it goes first, and it can use Eruption and blow everything up, which just does a ton of damage. So Lilligant after you, and then it has Sleep Powder to put people to sleep. 105 boosted with like Timid, and then you give it a Ghost Tera or with a Sash. And it would just be really, really fast. Put something to sleep. Maybe you hit it, maybe you don't. With 75, if you do, you usually win the game on the spot. And then it also has Close Combat for Incineroar. And that was really nice. This is how the team would work. But I think what's even better is you can run something like Groudon. Or in Calyrex's case, I think Miraidon's better. Because you can hit the main problem for Expanding Force was Dark types. It would do it a ton of damage and sweep anything that didn't resist or was immune to it. But Miraidon destroys Steel and Dark types really easily. It's really good into Incineroar. It's really great against Urshifu because of its typing. And it's also great into Rilaboom because of its typing and Flame Charge. Incineroar cannot intimidate Miraidon, and having Sunny Day up means Surging Strikes from Urshifu doesn't do as much damage. Flame Charge is great as well, because what you would do is you would Flame Charge, because 135 speed is not quite Calyrex speed. So you can use Flame Charge and also be faster than Miraidon. So 135 is weird because, like I was saying, Miraidon has it, Fluttermane has it, and also Xianpao is another one, which I'll talk about later. Xianpao is another one that has 135. So being able to break that speed tier with Flame Charge, I think is essential for Miraidon, because I think Miraidon's better in dual restricted, because single restricted formats, it's not as strong. It's kind of weak to Calyrex. You don't really have a great defense to it, and other mons like can fire Tera against it, like Calyrex, and just Trick Room against you and hit you with a either Ice move, and then you're forced to Tera into fire, and then you get hit by a ground type high horsepower. But this is really great in dealing with Rilaboom, which can counter psychic terrain with grassy terrain, so you hit it. And then you deal with Urshifu as well, which can put on a lot of pressure. And then, yeah, it pretty much counters all the things that want to take an Expanding Force. So I think Expanding Force with Miraidon and Groudon will be really strong. I'll talk about Groudon in a sec. And then you can, what we kind of learned with Reg H is the Sun with Jumpluff is really broken. Chlorophyll, you can have Sleep Powder, Tailwind. It also has Rage Powder as an option. And then it has Ghost Tera if you want to, or you can go with Covert Cloak. Just be kind of a Sun type Whimsicott. Rage Powder as well, and then you have Encore as another support move. It also has Light Screen as well if you really want to. And what Sleep Powder allows you to do is it forces your opponent to Grass Tera. And if they Grass Tera, they get hit by Miraidon. So very, very good. I think Miraidon will make Expanding Force Caly way more broken. I think these two are really great as well. Even if you don't do Expanding Force, being able to just kill Dark types with Miraidon pairs super well with Calyrex. Also great into Terapagos with Collision Course. Hits it very hard. It's kind of a rough matchup for it. And then turns off the weather against Kyogre. Oh, where is it? Yeah, Kyogre's right there. So that's how you play Miraidon. Fire types mainly there for the ice types and fairy types, and boosts its damage in the sun, and it just does way too much damage. So I'd say this is the most consistent way to run it going into Reg. If you want to play it in Reg G, it can also boost, let's see if there's a team. Yep, it boosts Fluttermane and Raging Bolt, as well as Chi Yu, which is very smart. And Koraidon can work in Reg G, but I think it gets so much stronger and dual restricted. So run Ursaluna on it as well. And then you have Indeedee for helping hand and follow me support. It also sets up the Trick Room. And then I think Jumpluff's a little bit better than Lilligant because it has access to Tailwind and Rage Powder and as well as Encore. So that's pretty much it. If you run Covert Cloak, you can run Water Tera as well. And yep, and Psychic Terrain also blocks Fake Out and priority moves, which is very important against Calyrex because you don't get hit by Sucker Punch. Astral Barrage as well is really important. You can go Nasty Plot. I think Imprison is another interesting choice that you can run on Calyrex. You can go Imprison and then completely lock out other Calyrex options. Same with this set. You can go with Imprison and lock out the Draining Kiss from other Calyrexes and just be immune to their Astral Barrage, and it comes down to a speed tie if they do go max speed. And on this team, you can run Imprison and then go with like Trick Room instead. You can Imprison the Trick Room if you want to. And then the Tera is kind of up to you. I just pick Psychic because it's just doing even more damage. Life Orb, and then you're picking up knockouts. So Koraidon on Expanding Force is very, very interesting. And while we're on the topic of Expanding Force, I'll talk about the version with Groudon. So the version with Groudon is a little bit different, where I think one strategy you could go for is kind of a fun strategy is Groudon's not very great because Precipice Blades kind of misses sometimes, so it's not the most consistent option, and I think Koraidon's a little bit better, but it's still great into Miraidon. Precipice Blades and Drought, it also gets Eruption as well, so I think it's just a better Torkoal, even if you wanted to go down that route, and you could go Fire Tera. But the power here is once you set up Trick Room, you could go with Gravity, and Precipice Blades becomes 100% accurate. And that's really nice because Precipice Blades, along with Expanding Force, just Psychic with plus Ground, like what's going to resist that? You hit Miraidon, so Expanding Force is just hitting pretty much all the fighting types. You hit the Rilaboom with Expanding Force, you hit the Fluttermane, you hit Xianpao. Well, you hit Xianpao with the Precipice Blades. It's really great offensively. I think it's a little bit weaker than Koraidon, but it's an interesting strategy you can try with Gravity, Expanding Force. Dawn Wings also gets Meteor Beam, which is really cool because you can hit Incineroar. And then Moongeist Beam is a ghost move, so you can hit both of the Calyrex forms. Where is it? Yep, so you can hit both of these. This also is immune to Body Press, which is nice, and Koraidon can't really hit it, especially because you can go Water Tera, which is nice. So another Expanding Force user, it also has access to Trick Room as well. So this is kind of the slow Expanding Force version of the Calyrex version I showed you. So that's another strategy for the team. One more option for Terapagos. So one team that was run at the World Championships was RegiDrago plus Zacian. I think RegiDrago is really strong in a dual restricted format because it's kind of like a third legendary. So Dragon Energy does a ton of damage, but the thing that resists it is Fairy and Steel types, which are scary. But you can have Zacian to kind of deal with both of those. Zacian's Behemoth Blade, or I think it ran Iron Head, just does a ton of damage, and it can flinch. And you hit the Fairy types with those, like Fluttermane and Tera Fairy Calyrex. And then you have Sacred Sword to deal with stuff like Zamazenta. Hit Zamazenta as well, and Terapagos. And then you have Terra Blast Ground to deal with Miraidon. So RegiDrago forces Teras, as well as Zacian, because it's really strong. But you can pair that with Terapagos, and another way you can run it is Choice Specs. Choice Specs is really good because you can go Terra Starstorm, Dark Pulse, Earth Power. It has a ton of moves like Hell, Bug Buzz if you want it. And you can force Teras really easily. You also have Whimsicott for Tailwind support. Chi-Yu was mainly there to deal with the Steel types. And then Amoongus is a great way to deal with Trick Room, especially with like Water Tera, Spore, Rage Powder, or you can force them to Tera into Grass and then just punish them later with Terapagos. So really aggressive team, but I think Terapagos really benefits, like I said, when you force the opponent to Tera. So this is another version of the team you can run. I think it's a really cool idea. Zamazenta is that way you want to build it is you want to get rid of the ghost types. Xianpao is very, very great with it because it deals with the ghost types with Sucker Punch. You can even go with Throat Chop as a means to hit stuff like Ursaluna Blood Moon. And Hyper Voice users, or even Incineroar, is really great against because if you Throat Chop them, they can't Parting Shot. And it's really great against Dark types. Sword of Ruin boosts. It lowers the defense, so it makes your body presses even stronger and allows you to hit more useful numbers with Zamazenta. You also have Fluttermane, like I said, for that Icy Wind support. And then Rilaboom is a really great partner as well for Grassy Surge. To have that healing, because once Dauntless Shield hits the field, it raises its defense, but it's only once per battle. So if you switch out, it doesn't really work anymore. So you have to, it kind of like sits there on the field. It's a better Archaludon of this format. So it sits there, it takes no damage, it heals from grassy terrain, and it has a good speed tier with 128, but it's not quite, like I said, 135. So having Fluttermane to help out with Icy Wind and Thunder Wave is very important. So these are the main four that are run. I think a great partner for it is Giratina. Giratina is a really great partner for it Endure Restricted because normally what you would do is you'd have Latios. Latios is great for Zamazenta because Zamazenta is weak to fighting, it's weak to fire, and it's also weak to ground. And Giratina has Levitate, it's a dragon type, and it's immune to fighting. So it's absolutely perfect. Giratina wasn't great in single restricted because Incineroar just destroyed it, but now you have a mon that absolutely destroys Incineroar and eats it for breakfast. So Giratina is absolutely awesome. It's still can be really slow, which is the problem, but I think it makes up for Zamazenta's weaknesses really, really well. It also has a great typing for Urshifu, and with Steel Tera, you're able to be you can absolutely wall both Calyrex Ice, because it can't hit you with the ground move, and now you're Steel type against Ice. And you're also really good against Ursaluna forms. So I kind of forgot to talk about this Ursaluna. This one's still good, but it's more team-based. Hyper Voice is very good. You have Blood Moon, which does a ton of damage. Mind's Eye means it doesn't hit. It goes through ghost types. And then you have Earth Power. So this is a special version of Ursaluna. I kind of forgot to mention it earlier. Life Orb, it's 2 points faster than this one, but it's another version of Ursaluna you can run. Not as popular though. So I think Giratina pairs so nicely with Zamazenta. Urshifu is really good as well because it completes the Rilaboom core. So that's pretty nice. And as for some other mons that were run, I think Tyranitar is one. Tyranitar is another mon that beats up ghost types. It has Knockoff. It has Sandstream to change the weather against Miraidon, as well as Kyogre. And Zamazenta is already a Steel type, so it doesn't get hit by Sandstream. You have Knockoff. You also have Stone Edge, which is very scary for Calyrex Ice. Knockoff for the Calyrex. And what else can you run? You have Low Kick. And you normally run like Ghost Tera. So this is for the mirror. And then you have Tera Blast. Assault Vest makes it very, very bulky. And it's a great counter to Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu can't hit Tyranitar with a fire move because of rock or a dark type move. And then it gets hit by a low kick or Stone Edge. Tera Blast. And I guess you can go like Rock Slide as well. So just another option you can consider on this type of team, or Urshifu. Urshifu is really broken, so that works. But I think Giratina is really cool, especially with Xianpao, with Sword of Ruin. It boosts Poltergeist to obscene levels. So Grisius Orb with Poltergeist, it does like a ton of damage. Shadow Sneak is also very great because against Fluttermane and Calyrex, it can just priority them and hit them for weakness. It also has Icy Wind for speed control as well. Too bad this thing doesn't get Tailwind. It did get Tailwind back then, but not now. This thing would be absolutely broken if it had Tailwind. So Icy Wind as speed support. You can also go like Phantom Force. Force them to switch into a normal type, and then go with like a Body Press. So very, very good. Poltergeist can miss. You have Phantom Force as well, which doesn't miss but does more damage. And also Poltergeist only works if they have an item. So definitely options there. You also have Outrage to do a ton of damage. And overall, I think Giratina is a perfect partner for Zamazenta. Let me see some damage calcs. Giratina Origin. Is it this one? Okay. See, like with Calyrex Shadow, you can just kill it with Shadow Sneak in one hit because it doesn't have high defense depending on how much. Well, yeah, this is also factoring like Sword of Ruin as well. It just beats it up. And then you have Fluttermane. Specs, bulky choice specs, all out attacker. Let's go with this. Yeah, again, so you just beat up the ghost types with Shadow Sneak. You also have Poltergeist. And let's see, against Raging Bull, I think it does a ton of damage as well. Poltergeist with this, you have Adamant. Oh yeah, Sword of Ruin. So it does a pretty good amount of damage. Priority Shadow Sneak. And then it also has Icy Wind. So very, very, very good mon, I would say. Another way you can run Zamazenta is with Kyogre. So we're starting to get into Kyogre stuff. Run the same core of Rilaboom and Xianpao and Urshifu, but now you have Rain attached to it with Tailwind and you have Bleak Wind Storm. So you just have like a different mode to the team, and you're able to deal with Chi-Yu and ground types a lot better with Kyogre. So definitely, because back then Kyogre was really good with Zacian, but now Zamazenta is just better than Zacian, so you can run Kyogre with Zamazenta. Also, the other thing was Wide Guard plus a Levitate user, again, like with Peliper, means Calyrex can't hit you. So you could also go, instead of Steel, you could go with Terra Ghost. And as you see, the damage is a little bit different. And you're actually able to pick up KOs. Even, you could probably go like, just max that bad boy out. And you can start to do a lot of scary damage with it. Outrage also does like too much damage. So two different ways to run Zamazenta. A lot of it comes down to how do you deal with the dark types and how do you deal with the Amoongus. Another thing is you could run Taunt as well. And usually this runs Grass Tera on this type of team to deal with the Amoongus. So I wonder how much does Giratina do to Amoongus? Oops. Oh, it can actually kill it with Sword of Ruin. That's crazy. And Ghost Tera. So you can either go Ghost Tera, drop your Dragon type weakness, or you can go with Steel Tera as an option. The other nice thing about it is Giratina is so bulky that it can just survive stuff. Like Astral Barrage, we don't care about that. Oh my god. Calyrex. Like, Glacial Lance doesn't kill this thing, although that's because it's that. Oh, Glacial Lance does kill this thing, but I know this one. Yeah, Astral Barrage doesn't kill you, even though if you're weak to Calyrex, it feels like you should die. So you can train this thing to be either especially bulky or defensively bulky. But there's a way to around Calyrex with this Tera. So Kyogre, I think, is going to be really strong on Tailwind, because again, you could pair it with Zacian. Some other teammates you can consider is Landorus, Sandshrew Storm, Earth Power, Sludge Bomb, Weather Ball, and it pairs very nicely with it. You can go with the Water Spout set, and then you can give it Overquill. Overquill is another option because against Calyrex it can't be a Fairy type or a Dark type because of Sludge Bomb. And what is it? Not Sludge Bomb. You can give it Swift Swim. You can give it a Life Orb. You can give it Crunch, and then Gunk Shot. There we go. It also has Acid Spray to boost Kyogre's damage, so it's like a fake Tears, but only for one target, and then usually Protect. So that's one way you can run it. That's another partner you have, and then you have Rilaboom and Tailwind and stuff. Pretty standard stuff, I would say. Another way Kyogre was run was it was run with Wo Chien. Wo Chien would have Pollen Puff. It would have like Leech Seed, and then you'd run it with Urshifu usually, and then some sort of Tailwind setter. Not sure who, but you could run it with like Iron Jugulus. So this thing would have Snarl and Booster Energy. And yeah, you could run Wo Chien, and this thing would have a Assault Vest. Wo Chien is lowering the damage from attacks, and then Kyogre is just really bulky, especially, and now you have an Assault Vest, so Calyrex is really not hitting this thing, either of them. And then you give it a Grass Tera as well. And then Ruination, because you're not doing as much damage because you don't have, because you're not going fast mode, right? So you go Grass Tera, and then yeah, you don't have the Mystic Water either. You go with like Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Origin Pulse. And you just be really bulky, you don't die, Incineroar just hits your opponent and all that stuff. And this is kind of how the team was. As for restricted, I'm not too sure. I guess you could run like... I guess you could run Calyrex if you wanted to. But this is just another style of Kyogre that was run if you're thinking about playing it and building upon it. So there's that. And as for other mons that get better in dual restricted, let me just go over them. So we're kind of in the latter half of the video. Grimsnarl gets a lot better in dual restricted because the screens are really great. Restricteds are hitting very, very hard, but being able to set up a light screen or reflect is very good. Thunder Wave is very good because if you can shut down something like a Calyrex with the Thunder Wave or Zamazenta or even Terapagos, you're eating very well. And Foul Play is just a great move in general because you hit Calyrex, both of them, and a lot of restrictors just have high attack in general, so Foul Play is very good. Normally you'd run Ghost Tera on this for the Fake Out. Light Clay improves your light screen so it lasts longer. Roaring Moon is very good because Booster Energy, it has really great stats. Booster Energy gets procced for photosynthesis. Then you have Acrobatics and Flying Tera. This is very good against Urshifu and Rilaboom. And Knockoff is very good against both of the Calyrex forms. And what's even better is you're able to set up Tailwind, which is very important. So I think this one gets better because dual restricted, it's all about having like mons that help cover two different type of restricteds. This one covers these two. You have Tailwind. You have Knockoff to help knock off the leftovers. It also resists Kyogre. And then because of flying acrobatics, you can hit Miraidon. And you also cover quite a few of the chess pieces here. So I think Roy Moon will see some play. It did get some results at Worlds on this Kyogre team. So it's not bad. It does get hit by fairy types, it's not perfect, but it does cover specific matchups super well. Volcarona is very nice because against Zamazenta, you can Rage Powder and then burn it. Quiver Dance is also very good because what you can do is Quiver Dance and be very specially bulky against the likes of Calyrex and Terapagos. Resist Glacial Lance, which is very good. And then Dragon Tera as well. It can also burn the Miraidon, which is important. You also have Skitter Smack, which is a Snarl. And then you have Heat Wave for Calyrex. So this is another interesting Mon that you can run that I think does get better in dual restricted. That is a lot of uses. You have leftovers. You can also go with safety goggles if you really want to. And overall, it's just very good. Clefairy I talked about, but it has a bunch of other moves. So it has Follow Me, Protect, After You. It has Sing. It also has Helping Hand. And it has Heal Pulse, which is cool. So yeah, I've already talked about this one. So I'm going to just move on. Iron Valiant, I think, is very good in dual restricted. It's another support mon that gets a ton of utility. You get Wide Guard, you get Coaching, you get Disable, you get Encore. You have Spirit Break to lower the the special attack, because special attackers are very scary, as you can see. And it's overall very fast with Booster Energy 116, and it gets boosted. Very good. It has a ton of moves it can run. Entei is also very good because Inner Focus means Incineroar or Rilaboom can't fake it out. It has Sacred Fire, so you can burn the Calyrex, which is very good. And it can be very specially bulky with Assault Vest. You also can Intimidate it, which is cool. Stomping Tantrum, which is nice. And then Terra Normal Extreme Speed hits very hard, especially with Choice Band, which is another option. I think this mon is very good into certain cores of the format. With the burn especially, it's just so good. As for next, I think Gothitelle is another option for dual restricteds. Covert Cloak is very strong so you don't get hit by Fake Out. But what you can do with Gothitelle is lock in certain restricteds. So let's say you are playing against a Calyrex and your team doesn't want it, like say you're playing a Miraidon team, like Miraidon Calyrex, but you want to get rid of their Calyrex first. So you lock in their restricted and then have something right next to it that can kill it, and then now your two restricteds can go ham. So you can also lock in certain mons like Clefairy, hit them with a taunt or a Amoongus, and now they can't do anything. So this creates, I think, weird scenarios where you just lock in certain mons, and if you kill the one you don't want, then you can just win on the spot, and then now they're stuck there with an Amoongus. Then I think Gothitelle is really strong, especially in these dual restricted formats. Being able to lock something down is very, very important. It's not foolproof though. Calyrex can just switch out, and there's other Ghost Teras like Kyogre which can run. But overall, I think it's very good. Foul Play with Tera Dark is really cool because you're able to hit Calyrex super, super well. So Fake Out is nice too. Bronzong is very good in legendary formats due to its resistances. It's immune to stuff like Precipice Blades. It's also immune to just Calyrex in general. And with the right Tera, with like Water Tera, it can resist Kyogre. Another cool thing is this generation, it has access to Iron Defense and Body Press, so it's not just a regular old Trick Room user. Gyro Ball is good against fairy types like Fluttermane. But Iron Press makes it to where like certain physical attackers can't hit it. So if you're able to get rid of all their special attackers You can go with like Gyro Ball, you can go with Body Press and then start hitting their Terapagos for massive damage, or their Zamazenta, and they just can't do much back to you, especially with Trick Room. I think this is an interesting mon to think about. Steel with Levitate is very good into Ursaluna as well. Wo Chien I talked about. Actually, I just skipped Ting-Lu. Ting-Lu I skipped. Both of them are really similar, where due to their ability and their massive bulk, they can kind of shut down a restricted. So you can pair Wo Chien with a Kyogre, for instance, and it doesn't affect Kyogre, but it's affecting the Glacial Lance user on the other side. It also has access to Snarl, Pollen Puff, Giga Drain, and Pollen Puff really helps out Water Spout. So it can just keep healing it, or even other restricteds. I think Wo Chien gets so much better in dual restricted formats because of its ability. And also because of their typings, they either are immune or resist Miraidon, unless it Fairy Terras. And then it naturally is really good into Calyrex. So poison type's normally the best Tera, so you can avoid the Fairy type. And then it has, both of them have Snarl, Wo Chien has Pollen Puff, but Ting-Lu has Fissure. Fissure is very good because you can just kind of tap a restricted and get rid of it. So you can trade your non-restricted for their restricted. Has Stomping Tantrum, has Throat Chop. I think this will see play for sure. It also has Ruination. Ruination is another tool that both of them have to just cut really bulky mons in half. And then the Poison Tera also helps you avoid the Body Press. Umbreon's another mon you can use, so it's a dark type, so really good into Calyrexes. And it has Foul Play, so the same thing as Gothitelle. It has Snarl, so you can just reduce damage. Yawn is also very good, because if you can put a restricted to sleep, that's very nice. And then if you're running it on a Sun team, you can run Moonlight. So it just heals itself. Water Tera is good into Urshifu as well as Calyrex Ice. And then you have Taunt against Trick Room users and Amoongus. Ditto's very interesting because you can copy a restricted and then sweep. With Choice Scarf, like let's say for instance against a Calyrex, you switch it in, and then now you are them. You copy all their boosts, and now you have a Choice Scarf, so you outspeed them. So it can be very scary in the end game, even Miraidon as well. Just copy them, and now you're scarfed up, and you can use their moves against them. And what's weird is a lot of these mons are weak to themselves. Like you body press this, you dragon, you can just Draco Meteor this, Shadow Rider this, Astral Barrage. Yeah, you get some really good stuff out of Ditto. Gastrodon is also interesting because it depends on how popular Kyogre is in Urshifu. So it's good into Urshifu because you can just Storm Drain it and Kyogre. And it's also immune to Miraidon, which is important. It's also bulky enough to survive hits from a lot of these restricteds due to his good HP. And Yawn is really similar to Umbreon where you can put something to sleep. Also good into Incineroar. You have Icy Wind. You also have Scald. Oh no, you don't have Scald. Oops. You have Ice Beam. And then you can go with like Citrus Berry or Leftovers. And go from there. Screamtail is another one where it just shuts down mons. It has Encore Disable. It's really fast. Very fast. Especially with Booster Energy. And it has a really good move pool. It has Imprison as well, which is cool. And yeah, overall, it's just another mon that you can use to shut down your opponents that's really fast. So, like let's say Calyrex locks into a move, or a Choice Specs user, and then you can disable it. Walking Wake, I think, gets better because there's going to be more weather and dual restricteds. You can go with Hydro Steam, Flamethrower, Draco Meteor. Hydro Steam gets boosted in Sun and Rain and with Life Orb. It just does a ton of damage. And then Flamethrower is really good. You can either use water to drop its dragon typing and boost Hydro Steam. So I think Walking Away, it hits super hard, especially with Photosynthesis and Life Orb. It's just very, very good. Regieleki is the fastest thing in the format with 200 speed. Electroweb, it also has screen supports, it has Thunderbolt, it has Protect. It's just kind of like a Fluttermane, but more specific. Focus Sash is very good, and then you can go with Electric Tera. And you can hit stuff like Kyogre super hard. You also do a decent chunk to Zamazenta. Yeah, I think this is another mon to consider, but it's more specific compared to Fluttermane. Iron Bundle is also the same thing with Booster, and its speed is 1 point faster than that 135. I think that's very important. You can get off an Icy Wind, and then you also have like Tera Blast, and you can go ground if you want to, which is really cool. So 2 mons where they're faster than the 135 speed tier, which is important in this format. And you can just outspeed stuff and have your restricteds kill it. Lastly is Dragonite. Dragonite's another mon that can kind of roll compress, where it's inner focus so it doesn't get faked out by Incineroar, Rilaboom. Like, honestly, just look at this list. Just look, Rilaboom, Incin, Fire. Like four in a row here is crazy. And then another one right there. So it's a really popular core. You just say no to that. You don't get intimidated. And then Terra Normal Extreme Speed allows you to be immune to Calyrex Ghost. Aerial Ace hits Rilaboom and Incineroar. No, Rilaboom and Urshifu. Outrage does a ton of damage. It probably just like flat out kills a Calyrex. Let me see. Dragon Knight. Adamant. It doesn't kill. Oh, wait. We didn't even do Outrage. Yeah, Outrage just kills it with the Choice Band, and that's not if it doesn't Fairy Tera. So you have Outrage. You also have Iron Head to hit the Fairy types. There's also other moves. You can go with Low Kick to hit Zamazenta. You also have Ice Spinner to get rid of terrain. And it's just very bulky and hits very hard. And then it can just end the game with Extreme Speed against certain mons, which are great. It also resists the Body Press, which is cool. And you can't fake it out or intimidate it to get around it. That Outrage is going to hit super hard. But it is luck-based, so you don't know which target it's going to hit. Alright, and for the last part of the video, I'm going to talk about some best of one closed team sheet stuff for both restricted and non-restricted formats. Let's get into it, because I think, so best of one closed team sheet, you can be really creative because you don't know what your opponent's going to run. So here's some really creative stuff I came up with. One I've really liked is you can go with Smeargle, you can give it a Covert Cloak, and then Vacuum Wave, because Calyrex likes to run normal Tera for the mirror. So you can just Vacuum Wave your own Calyrex, and then Weakness Policy to proc a +2. And then you have Hyper Beam. So you're already at +2, so you can start hitting stuff with Astro Barrage. You have Follow Me. Smeargle's another mon you can run in these formats, but I think it kind of gets destroyed by Urshifu. But it's an option on really specific teams like this, or even the Global Challenge, or Best of One closed team sheet. It has every move. You can even go like Decorate for Calyrex Ice and Trick Room users. So it's like a better coaching. But Calyrex Shadow, yeah, you can just Astro Barrage stuff. Ghost normals are pretty great typing offensively because not too much resists it. And then you have Hyper Beam, you have your own Terra Normal, Terra Blast. It's just crazy what you can do. I've loved using this strategy. It's really fun to use. But stuff like this is what you want to kind of play, is you run conventional mons in the Global Challenge. You're like, oh my gosh, this team looks really, really normal here. But then you never know, like maybe the Rillaboom, maybe the Incineroar is running Helping Hand, or this is running like Terra Normal, Fairy, Terra Blast, something crazy. So you run a team that looks normal, and then you run really gimmicky stuff like this that can just steal games on turn one. So that's how you want to approach closed team sheet best of one, is be more aggressive or use like regular strong mons with a really unconventional set like this. Whimsicott's another example where you can just, it has so many moves. You can run Light Screen, you can run Encore, Tailwind, that Endeavor set I was talking about. You can even run like Fling, King's Rock if you wanted to, like nobody's stopping you. Prankster, you could run, what else can you run? You can run Taunt, you can run Switcheroo on this thing and give like a choice item. You could run Cotton Guard. Cotton Guard's another really interesting one. Raise the user's defense by 3. You can run Stun Spore on this thing, but you want to usually run Tailwind on this guy, so you don't want to get too crazy. You can run Helping Hand. They're like, what is he doing? Another Terra you can run on it is Rock. Rock resists poison, it resists flying, it resists fire for it. It's really great Terra, to be honest. You could run Sunny Day. You could run Tickle. There's just so many moves this mon can run. It's absolutely crazy. You could run Fake Tears on it. You could run Misty Terrain. So Misty Terrain means you can't be put to sleep. You could run Charm, Cotton Spore as like a form of speed control. Yeah, this thing can be really crazy to run. There's so many moves you can run to trip people up in the Global Challenge. Calyrex, another example of a mon where you could just run a supportive set. It gets Encore, it gets Disable. Imprison's another really strong option in the Global Challenge, I think, especially when it comes to these restricted formats, because your opponent's going to have to run a few of these guys. So you already know what the field's going to look like. It's going to be a few restricted. It's going to be restricteds you've seen. So now I can just imprison your Calyrex. Now it can't Astro Barrage my team. What are you going to do? Should have prepared for it. It also gets Heal Pulse. I don't know if it's going to be that great, but it gets Snarl and Will-O-Wisp as an option. And like, how are you going to know? You could even run like Terra Blast with it, and maybe like Electric with Miraidon. So yeah, there's a lot of sets you can run with Calyrex because it has a pretty great move pool as well. So it even gets Haze. How are you gonna know? It gets Life Dew. This is crazy. Zamazenta is another one of the Imprison crew. Just another thing to consider. Indeedee can also completely wall the Draining Kiss sets with Imprison. You imprison their Draining Kiss, and then Astral Barrage doesn't hit you. Iron Valiant's like Whimsicott, where it's another mon that has a super deep move pool. You can wall out Fluttermane completely with this thing. With Imprison, they can't Moonblast. You have normal Terra, and then they can't Icy Wind you or Dazzling Gleam due to Wide Guard. So that's pretty cool. You have Destiny Bond, which I think is another option in these restricted formats and in closed team sheet best of one, being able to just Destiny Bond and then their Calyrex dies and then you take them with you and they didn't know that. You can absolutely steal the game. You have Encore as well, so you can go Encore Disable as an option. You also have Coaching, which is pretty cool. You have Shadow Sneak, so kind of like the Garantina thing, where you can just kill a Fluttermane or something. It has Helping Hand. You have Icy Wind. You have Screens. This thing is, oh my god, it never ends. It has Taunt. It has Throat Chop. This thing has infinite move pool. Confuse Ray. Hypnosis. Hypnosis probably isn't that good. Too luck based. You have Quick Guard, you have Psychic Terrain, you have Trick Room if you want to add that to the Imprison set. Yeah, this thing gets a ton of moves it can use. Ogerpon's another interesting one that people don't think about, the grass version. But I think the grass version is very good with Calyrex. Calyrex is weak to Incineroar. It doesn't really like Urshifu all that much. Chi-Yu can be kind of a problem for it. But now we erase those problems, because if Incineroar comes in, we use Defiant. We can have a Covert Cloak. We can't get faked out. And then now we just superpower it. So that's cool. The other nice thing is once it terastallizes, oh, it doesn't show the mask, but once it terastallizes, it gets plus to its speed, which is pretty cool. So you can absolutely just outspeed an Urshifu, outspeed a Chi-Yu, hit it with superpower, or hit it with a Ivy Cudgel. And then it also hits Kyogre super hard. And then this thing also gets Encore for some reason. This thing has a lot of moves. So even the other Ogerpon forms can run Stomping Tantrum with the Ogerpon Heartflame. So against like Miraidon. Like how are they going to know? They can't read your team sheet. So you can use Ivy Cudgel. It also gets Play Rough. It gets Quick Attack. This thing is Low Kick for some reason. Another set that was run was Loaded Dice along with Bullet Seed. So that's another tool you have at your disposal. So you hit through Focus Sash on Urshifu. Yeah, this thing is really good actually. It has Brick Break for screens. So yeah. Miraidon has a bunch of different sets it can run as well to surprise people. Parabolic Charge. It heals 50% of damage dealt, so Electric Seed, and then you go Calm Mind. This thing also has Agility to boost its speed, and then it also has Snarl. So Snarl can help reduce the damage of other mons as well. It also has Eerie Impulse. So it can play more of a defensive set. It's really good with something like Grimmsnarl and or just another like Whimsicott. Actually, you could run this with Whimsicott if you wanted to, and just heal a bunch of damage and just stay on the field forever. And yeah, that would be a real surprise. Another option is Tera Flying. Tera Flying is really good against Rilaboom. So Rilaboom likes to switch in on terrain, so you can just Tera Blast them with Flying, and then you can also pair it with an Earthquake user, and then now you're doing Discharge plus Earthquake strategies. So very cool. Another surprise option is you can run Overheat on Miraidon to deal with Rillaboom as well, which is really strong. So it also gets like Reflect and Screens and stuff for some reason. It also has Taunt, but I think this is another really wacky way you can run it that catches people off guard. Terapagos also has Rock Polish, so forget about speed control. We're just going to Rock Polish, Terra Storm, Dark Pulse, and just get away with murder. It also has Meteor Beam and Power Herb. So you can go Power Herb, Meteor Beam, and then Rock Polish the next turn, and then do a ton of damage while being fast. Calyrex also has some funky sets it can run as well. So you could pair it with Miraidon, get Electric Seed to its defense, and then start body pressing stuff, which is weird. But hey, it's closed team sheet. We can do whatever. Terra Blast along with it with Electric, and now we have Electric Ice combo in Trick Room. The other way you can run it is with the Salt Vest, and then run a bunch of different moves like Seed Bomb on it, and what else can this thing run? It has Heavy Slam, Seed Bomb, Terra Blast. Does it get Low Kick? Honestly, you just probably keep the body press, to be honest. And this is another set you can run. Yeah, this thing just... Actually, no, you'd run a ground move, so you'd probably keep the high horsepower. And then you give it something like, I don't know, Ghost Terra? Maybe not Ghost Terra, but you could give it Normal Terra. Normal Terra is another option against Calyrex. And then you could run a set like this. Actually, you know what? You could probably go Dark Terra, and then you could go with like Terra Blast and just kill the Calyrex. And then instead of this, you could go Heavy Slam to deal with that. So another option you can run. Milotic's another cool one because with Calyrex and Trick Room, what you can do is start coiling, and then in Trick Room, you just put everything to sleep. It's really good into Incineroar because of competitive and Scald. And it can also heal the Calyrex next to you with Life Dew. So another thing to consider. Coil boosts your accuracy, and Hypnosis puts stuff to sleep. Zoroark is very good in closed team sheet. It's amazing because you can disguise yourself as a Calyrex, but really you're a Terapagos, but really you were a normal type all along. So if they Astral Barrage you or Sucker Punch you, I mean, if they Astral Barrage or hits you with like a Shadow Ball with Fluttermane, it doesn't work. So also good into with Terapagos. Say they want to body press you or close combat you. Nope, doesn't work. This thing with Choice Specs also does a very respectable amount of damage with Hyper Voice and Hyper Beam. And Shadow Ball just rounds out your coverage. So very, very good Mon, especially in closed team sheet. There's so many wacky strategies you can run with Zoroark. I think this one is very good. Dondozo was run at Worlds and is very good in closed team sheet because you never know what this thing is going to run. Order Up Earthquake, Grass type is normally there for the Miraidon, and then Wave Crash. So I'm not sure how I'll be running this format, but somebody's going to do it. And it's very good into closed team sheet because this thing can have Unaware. It can have like Oblivious on it. And it can pair really well with certain like dual restricted, like Miraidon Ice Rider. There you go. Tatsugiri is worth mentioning because what you can do as a surprise strategy is go for Counter and Mirror Coat. Counter and Mirror Coat get way better when you don't know it's there. So if someone says like Astral Barrage or Glacial Lance, you can just press the Mirror Coat button or Counter button and kill them. So they will never know. Annihilate also gets a lot better in dual restricted because Final Gambit is very good, especially in closed team sheet because you don't know what this thing is going to run, even though normally it's Final Gambit, but I think Annihilate has some place in. It also has Encore. It also has Coaching, which is really nice. And then it also has U-Turn to switch out. And then you can go with something like Rage Fist if you wanted to. So Thundurus can be very good. It has Eerie Impulse. You can go with Dark Foul Play. Scary Face, Thunder Wave for speed control. Very good into the special attackers of the format. Porygon is really interesting because what you can do is Eerie Impulse the special attackers like Miraidon, Calyrex, Terapagos. And then Foul Play with Dark Terra and Analytic can kill Calyrex, which is insane. So let me do the damage calc. Doubles OU Trick Room. Let's go with that. Go with Foul Play. Dark Terra, and then, well, it's going to kill Calyrex Shadow as well, but Calyrex Ice and Trick Room, and then we go Analytic. Wait a minute. What was it again? Eviolite, Analytic, I think it was Attack. Oh, Dark. I think it was Adamant, right? No. I think... Oh yeah, so if it gets a +1 boost, not only does it live the Glacial Lance, but it just foul plays it back in Trick Room because it's going last, and then it just kills it. I wonder if Download does the same thing. Oh, Download does like the same amount of damage, but even then, you can just counter Calyrex with foul play. And then the other thing is it gets trace, so sometimes you can just copy as one from either Calyrex, and then now you're sweeping their team under Trick Room. Very scary stuff. It's bad into fighting types, but Porygon 2 is really unpredictable in closed team sheet. But this is a set. you could run. I could see. Or you could go like Ice Beam and then like Tera Blast, and then either go with like Calyrex Ghost, trace their Calyrex Ghost, and then kill them. And then with Trace, you're doing a lot of damage. Or you can go ground into Miraidon. So I like the Eerie Impulse set a little bit more because you Eerie Impulse the special attackers and then you foul play the physical ones. So Porygon 2 and Closed Team Sheet can definitely work. The origin forms are also interesting because they have telepathy. So you can pair it with something like Miraidon or some sort of spread strategy. I think Dialga Origin is very cool because what you can do is go Trick Room. They do some damage to you, you Steel Beam, kill something, you're knocked out, and now you bring something else in Trick Room next to, say, Calyrex Ice. So there's something there. You have Icy Wind, Spatial Rend does a decent amount of damage. They both have Trick Room. Telepathy gives it some wiggle room to do some really creative stuff, I think, especially in Closed Team Sheet where you don't know what to expect. Almost done. Avalugg has Mirror Coat. It has poor special defense. It has the special defense of a paper towel, but it has the defense of a champion. So what you can do is go Body Press, Fighting Tera, Sturdy, Body Press the Incin, Body Press the Zamazenta. It does way too much damage. The other thing is it has Recover. So if your opponent has no special attackers left, then you kind of just win. So one thing you could do is like Sturdy, Mirror Coat their Calyrex and they die. How do you know? And then the other thing is Wide Guard. Wide Guard's a very broken move in this format, so you can just Wide Guard away if they are locked into like Choice Specs Dazzling Gleam against Miraidon or even Terapagos, like we were saying. So that's pretty good. And then you have like Fist Plate. Honestly, what you could do instead is like Citrus Berry and just they hit you, you go down to Sturdy, Mirror Coat, heal, and then they have no physical attackers so they can't kill it, and then you just recover and Body Press everything else. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. You also have Iron Defense, but I don't know if it's worth it. So lastly is Mimikyu. So Mimikyu can shut down sweepers. So what you can do is go Disguise, take a hit, red card them out. And Shadow Sneak, once again, very good into Calyrex, very good into Fluttermane, especially with Swords Dance as well. Another thing you could run is Play Rough and Tera Blast. Tera Blast, this is really good because you can go Tera Blast Ground. And this can be very good, especially Closed Team Sheet. A strat like this is really hard to prepare for. And people are like, Mimikyu, what? What does that do? But yep, this is one strategy you can do. Just take the damage, red card, if they are like +6 or something, and just, I don't know, Swords Dance. Trick Room. So yeah, that's how you play best of one. Closed Team Sheet. You run conventional mons, you're like, oh, that Calyrex has Draining Kiss. But really, it has something way uglier. And how will you know? Oh, this Miraidon, it has like Fairy Tera Dazzling Gleam. I don't know. Does it? It might have Overheat. I'm going to switch in the Rilaboom. It doesn't work. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you learned something. This was like a full guide on Regulation G and potentially dual restricted and Reg I. And I hope you learned something new. Thank you for watching.